Hey everybody, and welcome to August's edition of Board Game Buys. So in this series I take a look at all of the board games that I've acquired over the last 30 days or so. Now before I get started on these 8 new games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in my show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's get started with Ingenious by Rainer Knizia. I have actually already touched on this in my latest edition of board games hitting my table. Now normally I don't do that until I've revealed the games on my Board Game Buy series, but that was just a mistake from me. But this one is kind of a pure abstract, very family weight game as you're playing out these kind of double-sided tiles which are actually hex shaped onto this big map here, and you're trying to create these chains of certain colours and shapes, and basically for every other symbol in that line or column or row, whatever you want to say, you're going to move this peg up your little score sheet, and at the end of the game, whichever colour is your lowest scoring one will be your final score. So it does have that Tigris and Euphrates scoring system, but in a much simpler game. Very accessible. I have played this one a few times, as I mentioned before. Seems to scale very nicely because the board simply gets a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller depending on the player count. And yeah, you know, spoiler alert, it's a lot of fun and I like it a lot. And I'll probably cover this one pretty soon in a review series with some other abstract games. So that is Ingenious. Now staying with Rainer Knizia, I took a chance on Royal Visit. Now this is pretty much a pure tug-of-war style game, and if you watch my content regularly, you might know that those style of games aren't generally my thing, but this one did appeal to me, not only because I love the look of it. This is actually a really gorgeous looking game with some amazing production choices. It's actually a reprint of a game called Times Square from many years ago. This was purely 2 players. You are basically trying to pull this court, which is like the king and the 2 guards next to him, over to your side of the board. If you kind of get the king into your region, you'll win, and if you get this crown piece into your region, you'll win. And the crown moves depending on the positioning from round to round of the different pieces on the map. But there are different little tricks you could do in this game. You're essentially managing a hand of cards to move each of the pieces. You could do different things by combining cards together and kind of teleporting things across the board. Definitely some quirky rules going on here, and that's as far as I'm going to mention with this one at this time, because again I will review this one pretty soon with some other 2-player only games. But that is Royal Visit, one that I've kind of had on the back burner for some time because it's always intrigued me, but I've been a little bit apprehensive due to my previous kind of non-success with tug-of-war games. Next up, we have another 2-player only game with Pinata. So I remember Pinata being on my radar when I first got into the hobby, actually. It seems to have fallen off a cliff since then. Not terribly popular game, and it's another reprint of a game called Balloon Cup, I believe. This one is actually a pretty nasty little game. It's kind of a tug-of-war game, but one that you're playing on your side, cards on your side of the board. You're either trying to have the highest numbers total or the lowest numbers total, depending on the orientation of these kind of these donkey boards or these pinata boards here. But the twist on this one is that as soon as you finish playing your 3 cards, which are colour-coded and will have to match these kind of candies in the centre of the board, as soon as you finish playing yours, then you can start playing on your opponent's side to sabotage them. So you are spinning a few plates here, and it can get pretty confrontational when you end up tanking your opponent's score. And then what you're doing is you're collecting those candies to try and trade them in to complete these different contracts. And the first to get, I think it's 3 out of the 5 contracts, wins. So you're just simply collecting these colours through that card hand management system. Very simple. I have played it, I think, only once so far, so I'm going to have to get some more plays in before I kind of make my definitive review. But it's very light, but it still has those little twists on there. And again, I will cover some more deeper thoughts on this later. But that is Pinata. Something else that I've acquired is Framework by Uwe Rosenberg. So actually, before playing Framework, my favourite game of Uwe Rosenberg was Nova Luna, an amazing puzzly game as you're stringing these tiles together, trying to combo essentially by completing as many requirements of these tiles as you can. Now this is almost a carbon copy of Nova Luna, but there are some minor changes, and spoiler alert, I do think they are all for the better, except for one thing. Number one, I think Nova Luna is more attractive as a game. The tiles are a lot brighter. This one's a bit more difficult to just look at a glance and see what each thing is. But the few little rules twists in this one I do actually prefer. For example, some of the tiles have multiple colours on, and some of them even have like 3 or 4 on, which is a lot more interesting when trying to string these tiles together. And some of them even have like requirements that you need to complete one before the other. So there's just a few little more wrinkles here. But my favourite thing about this one, again, this shouldn't be a review series really, but is the fact that the drafting system is much more streamlined. So in Nova Luna, you have the kind of patchwork drafting system where the player who's spent the least amount of time will go again. In this one, it's simply draw a number of tiles plus 1, equal to the players, and then just take your turn in picking them, and the first player gets 2 tiles. So in fact, it's the identical drafting system as one of my favourite tile placement games called Acropolis. But there we go. That's framework. Again, I will probably cover this as part of a series of reviews. But if you know I like Nova Luna, which you guys do, then I'm pretty much guaranteed to like this one, which I do. So that is framework. And the last 3 games here are kind of linked with each other because they're all from the same publisher. And the first of which is Herbaceous. So Herbaceous, very simple set collection game as you are kind of drawing these cards from a deck. You can either put them in your own personal garden or you can put them in the communal garden. And then at any time you can kind of choose to cash them in to complete these kind of set collection cards. But it's got this kind of pushy luck system in the game because the more you build up those cards in the centre, it means that your opponents are going to get first dibs on taking those cards. So it has a slight twist on that Biblios system, which the designer here, Steve Finn, is most known for. But that is Herbaceous, very simple, straightforward game. And again, still from Pencil First, we have Delicious. Now this one I probably know the least about here, so I've not played this one yet. This one is still in shrink, as you see, because it's literally just turned up. But this is a roll and write style game, which I haven't seen from Pencil First yet. I think they have got another game like that, which is the Herbaceous Sprouts version, but I've not played that one yet. And yeah, I know it's got some kind of, again, more simple set collection things as you're planting these different little gardens here and trying to get sets. So that's all I know about this one so far. But, because I've enjoyed other Pencil First games, I wanted to try them all. And the final one, again, still from Pencil First, is the What Not Cabinet. So this one I've actually heard some positive things about over the years, or it's not been out terribly long, maybe the last year or so. I think it's a bit of a cult favourite and people seem to be enjoying this one. I don't think it does anything terribly new. I think it's a simple kind of spatial puzzle, drafting things, putting them in order to score different ways and orientations. But I actually had some people recommend this to me after I recently reviewed In the Footsteps of Darwin, which is another very simple entry-level family weight set collection game, which I was lukewarm on, to say the best. I thought it was far too light and the decisions were obvious. And a few people said, if you like the idea of that one, then try this one. And again, considering I do like some other games by Pencil First, then I wanted to try it for myself because these kind of games are kind of hitting the spot for me at the moment. So that is the What Not Cabinet. Actually really excited to try this one. Now, another game I want to mention is one that I don't have the physical copy here anymore. That is Mycelia, which was sent to me by the publisher. I have reviewed this one already. It was a prototype version of a very abstract style game as you're putting influence on the board by sporing these mushrooms, trying to get the most points as you can. So check out that review if this one interests you, because it is launching on Kickstarter fairly soon, at the beginning of September, I believe. So yeah, I have got a full review of that one out there, but I've had to send the prototype copy off to the next reviewer. So yeah, so it can be looked at by more eyes. But that's it really. That's the 8 games that I've covered on this episode. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and let me know which of these games intrigues you the most. There certainly are the lighter variety of games, and which seems to be what I'm acquiring more at the moment, because I'm finding it a bit more difficult to play those more involved games. And I'm kind of more focusing on playing my existing heavier weight games at the moment, so I can really rack those plays up and experience what that game has to offer in its entirety. But if you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.